everyone, this is Nikachu, Merfolk Master. I'm here with my brother, and we are now going to look at Stinging Lionfish, an interesting uncommon coming out of Theros Beyond Death. Enchantment creature, a fish, blue and a generic, 2/1 creature. Whenever you cast your first spell during each opponent's turn, you may tap or untap target non-land permanent. So that effect actually is pretty powerful, particularly if you have a lot of flash cards in your deck. Being able to tap or untap, and it's anything. It could be, you can untap your own creatures, you can tap your opponent's creatures, you can tap their artifacts if necessary. And one thing that I would love to do in Modern, I would love the ability to untap my Ether Vial. Wouldn't that be amazing? I tap my Ether Vial, put a Lord in play, then cast Merfolk Trickster, trigger this thing, untap my Ether Vial, get another Lord in play, something to that effect. Really help dump your hand. But the problem is this thing's a fish. It's literally a fish. It's not a merfolk. It's not like it gets included when all other merfolk get +1/+1 in Island Walk. This doesn't count. It's a damn fish. It's just a 2/1 fish. So, I mean, that's a pretty big deal breaker. It's like Wizards is telling me, we're going to give you all the abilities you ever wanted, but we're going to put them on creatures that aren't actually merfolk. And by the way, the things that are merfolk, they're going to be useless. So and that seems to be how things are going, especially with like Brazen Borrower being printed in Throne of Eldraine. All the good Merfolk cards no longer are Merfolk. Who knows? In the end, there's only going to be Lord of Atlantis, Maz of the Pearl Trident, and Silver Gill Adept in our deck. And this thing. I mean, but it's a very exciting. It's a very exciting card, especially if you're playing it in I would say, a blue creature-based deck that plays with a lot of flash speed cards. So it's your first spell, and by the way, it's spell. It can be a counter spell. It can be opt. And there's some room to play opt in even a very heavy creature-based deck. It can be Harbinger of the Tides. It can be Merfolk Trickster. It can be Brazen Borrower. Too bad it doesn't have flash itself. That would be very interesting. Important, it's not legendary. So what happens is if you have multiple of these Stinging Lionfish, you can they will all trigger. So if you play Merfolk Trickster on your opponent's turn, you can tap down 3 creatures. So this will be a pretty good way of being able to push through damage against a deck that has a lot of blockers. Because whenever you play the first spell during each opponent's turn, you may tap or untap target non-land permanent. Too bad it wasn't lands. Like, being able to even untap your own lands could be very, very useful. But of course, like, if this thing was out and you start tapping your opponent's lands at their upkeep, that it would be miserable really, really quickly. But Stinging Lionfish, very unique. This is a card that has a lot of potential. It has a really unique effect, and it's really accurately costed at 2 mana. So once your opponent plays, like, this thing could come out on turn 2, and then you start just getting tempoed out. I mean, your opponent's playing creatures, but then as the Stinging Lionfish deck plays cards at end of turn, they're constantly tapping those creatures down. But if we look at something like Pioneer, really hard for this thing to defend itself. I mean, it's just going to get stomped, wild slashed, walking ballista'd out of the game. So very powerful effect, but very small body, going to be very hard to keep it on the battlefield. But make no mistake, if it does stay on the battlefield, I think it's going to be worth a lot of value. It's going to, if your opponent is playing quite a bit at flash speed, this will very easily tempo them out. I mean, if they are always playing at flash speed, they're always going to tap down your biggest creature, always, no matter what the hell you're doing, and then get in damage. And this might be another component to a Brazen Borrower deck. I guess the awkward thing is, if you're making a deck around Stinging Lionfish, you're going to want to have mostly flash speed creatures, and this would be the only one. Might be like one of the only cards, or very few cards, that doesn't operate at flash speed. Another problem is for the blue Devotion decks that might want to play this. Shitty Devotion. It's just 1 blue, so that's not good. It's not like you can go do nothing turn 1, Stinging Lionfish, Thassa into, well, you'd need something like Tempest Djinn by then to catch up on the Devotion. So not very good Devotion in that regard. maybe it also pairs very well with Leyline of Anticipation. Maybe this is one of those cards that's going to work really well with Leyline of Anticipation. You make your deck that can operate at flash speed. You remember Leyline of Anticipation, right?
That's one of the best cards. You should be just jamming that in there, just for the opening hand.
What mulligan for Leyline of Anticipation?
No, but just no mulligan to it. But if it's there, it's great. If it's there, it's amazing.
Well, I'm not gonna.
You can go to that's the kind of thing you go to 64 cards for. Just before.
Oh, there we go. That's the big brain mode now by my brother.
Fucking galaxy brain.
Yeah. Look at the art on this thing. It's pretty beautiful. So it's a gorgeous art, very unique card. Where it's gonna go, like, I'm not sure. Like, I can't play this in Modern Merfolk. It's a fish, but only in spirit. It's a Merfolk in spirit, but not really. You know what? You're not that good.
It's too literal of a fish.
You're not Brazen Borrower material, right? You're not Oko material. You're not Vendilion Click material. I'm not going to go out of my way to put you in my Merfolk deck. But maybe some Pioneer deck can utilize this card. Maybe some Standard deck can. I don't know. I don't know exactly what's possible in Standard. I really don't care, because in the long run we're just going to care about what happens in Pioneer and the other non-rotating formats. But anyway, my evaluation has potential. Where it goes, not sure. Very unique ability, and I think a very powerful ability. Stinging Lionfish probably could have been a rare, but maybe it's only uncommon because there's just not enough stuff you can play at flash speed. And they're really pushing. If you look at the spoilers, they're really pushing to get people to play spells on their opponent's turn. It's like they're trying to encourage or remind people, yeah, you can do that. You can play spells on your opponent's turn. It's okay. Go just play the spells on your opponent's turn. Don't be tapping out on your turn. I don't know. It's like a way of training people. You know, if you cast the spell on your opponent's turn, you're gonna get a bonus. It's gonna be something good. Anyway, this is my evaluation of Stinging Lionfish coming out of Theros Beyond Death.